You're listening to Twins Takes, the Minnesota Twins podcast. And welcome to episode 2 of Twins Takes. I'm Twin Central, joined by Twins Insider and Falvey's Mattress tonight. Troy is on vacation, so he won't be joining us, unfortunately, but we'll be back in a few episodes. And the Twins are seemingly in midseason form, despite it only being spring training. They haven't won a game since last Monday against Detroit. How are you guys doing, Insider and Falvey's Mattress?
You know, we're just you just got to take it one day at a time in this baseball season and in life, and that's what we're doing right now. One game at a time, one day at a time, rocking and rolling.
I'm ready for opening day, man. I'm kind of sick of seeing this spring training stuff. I'm just ready to get going here.
Yeah, I'm ready to get going too, but at least they're showing us the true versions of themselves.
So, do we have any new news today?
Well,
breaking news.
Well, I got some bad news for you.
Extra. Good news, everyone.
It's time for the news.
And as usual, we should begin with the bad news because that's what surrounds this organization for the most part. Walker Jenkins suffered a pulled hamstring since the last time we recorded. Luckily, it is just a minor injury. It was revealed it's a grade 1 hamstring strain, which should see him out only between a week to 3 weeks based off my very scientific Google search. I believe there was a video of him hitting BP against Liam Hendriks since he's been hurt. So shouldn't be out too long, but I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him the rest of spring with the big club.
Royce Lewis also. It wouldn't be a week in the Twins ecosystem without a Royce Lewis injury. He last week, of course, had a side injury, but seems to have been fine. MRI came back clean, and he was playing today. And he had a productive out. He had a RBI fly ball to center field today.
Hey, we've got some good news, guys. Bailey Ober's sitting 90, 91 miles an hour. I mean, better than what we saw last year. Hopefully we can have that throughout the 2026 season.
Yeah, for most guys sitting 90, 91, you'd think, oh, what's wrong with them? Why they're throwing so slow? But Ober last year just sat in that 90 mile an hour territory. So the fact that he's already there and, early March is actually an encouraging sign. And he's expected to make his spring debut on Friday. It'll be good to have that StatCast data and, the Stuff Plus models that we now have at every spring training start. We can have those publicly available. Obviously, the Twins have already, have their internal models and know where he's sitting. But I think Insider has some thoughts on Bailey Ober and his velocity.
We are very interested in that StatCast data. For those who don't follow along on X or Twitter, we are doing a gimmick every single day at Twins Insider Incorporated, where we are posting a Bailey Ober gem every day until he throws a pitch tracked at 93.0 miles per hour. And I really need him to have a good game on Friday, because I don't want to be doing this gimmick for like 2 years.
Are you worried you're going to run out of content with this gimmick?
I found some video of him throwing in middle school, throwing in T-ball, throwing in slow pitch, so we'll be good. But I'd rather not.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if I set the over-under at 92.9 miles an hour just in spring training. Do you honestly think we see him hit 93 over the next month? He's
going to get fired up like one pitch, be 2 strikes, facing maybe Cedar Rafaela. Against the Reds, or it's the Braves, not the Red Sox, right? Facing Ronald Acuna, get reared back, hit 93.1. I can see it.
So your play is that like he gets an adrenaline rush in a spring training game. That's what you're putting your hopes on.
Look, I'm just trying to motivate him. Whatever, I'm doing this for the team. I'm not doing it for myself. Okay.
Yeah, it's good accountability. Expect more, play better, right?
That's right.
In unfortunate news, Joe Ryan was replaced. Unfortunate for 2 reasons. Ryan was replaced on the WBC roster just for the pool play. He is still on the expanded. I don't know what the technical term is, but he's eligible to pitch if/when the United States gets into bracketed games. And the expectation, at least that I've seen, is that he's going to do all he can to be able to pitch. He'd probably only be up to 50 or 60 pitches at that point. But the other unfortunate part, he was replaced by, you think like, okay, they slide somebody else in there. That's like a half step down from Joe Ryan. No, it's Ryan Yarborough. That's who they replaced him with on the WBC roster.
Ryan Yarborough his fastballs might make Bailey Ober's look like 93. But in Twins related WBC news, Buxton has been healthy. knock on wood, and he is on the roster, and he played in their exhibition game today. Got a couple at bats. Was actually on the mic on ESPN, talking to the boys, talking to Aaron Judge. Made a couple nice catches. He's going to play a lot of center field, maybe some DH. It was talked about would he play corner outfield, but DeRosa said no corner outfield. So that may be
Yeah,
highlight of the Twins season. Watching Buck in the WBC hopefully hit some big homers. So.
Yeah, obviously the hope is that the WBC, gets him ramped up early and he hits the ground running when opening day comes. I thought that note about him not playing corner outfield was actually interesting because with PCA on the roster, there's no denying that PCA is a better, center field defender at this point in time. So I thought with the best lineup, that they can put on the field, that would slide him to DH or the corner. But I think the Twins set the expectation for both him and, just the team. They want him only to play center field or DH. They don't want to mess around with him in left field, especially with Corbin Carroll injured. I thought there was maybe a slight chance we would see that.
And in further Twins news, seems like David Festa will probably start the year on the 10-day IL. I know we'd all wanted him to slot into the bullpen, hopefully as a back-end guy, but just with that shoulder impingement, that does not seem likely at this point. So we'll just have to keep playing the waiting game with him.
Yeah, going off that news, I actually think that this probably makes it extremely likely that we've seen the last of him as a starter because let's say that he does, start throwing again in early April or maybe even May, just to get ramped up to a starter's workload at that point. He wouldn't be available till June or something. And I guess part of it will depend on where the Twins sit at that point. But I think this makes it very likely that he's transitioned to the bullpen. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I thought he should have been in there anyway. Because it's just another example of he's had so many injuries. Part of the relieving is that we need relievers, but part of it is just take a little workload off some of these guys. So I mean, it's been inevitable, but it's just another piece of evidence.
Yeah, and I do think that your point about the workload of being a starter versus a reliever, obviously the raw inning count or pitches that a guy's going to throw as a starter versus a reliever, you're obviously going to throw many more as a starter, but it's a different kind of workload coming out of the bullpen. Instead of pitching once every 5 or 6 days, you could pitch 3 times in 4 days or 4 times in 5 days. And while you're probably only throwing, 15 to 20 pitches an outing, if things go well, that is a different, kind of workload that guys have to learn to manage. And it's not a guarantee that you just throw a guy into the bullpen and they stay healthy.
There's not really any guarantees with pitcher injuries, though. I mean, his shoulder could just be, he's had a couple different shoulder injuries. You get to a point where you really start to fear permanent damage if you don't throttle him back, I think.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. And to round up the news, Hendry Mendez, who last week took a hit by pitch on the hand, he has returned to spring training action. So that was good to see. I know we talked about last episode with a hand, you never know. It seems like you either, break your hand and you're going to be out for 6 weeks, or you get a bruise for a day or two and you're back in there. Luckily, he checked out okay. I think he got off the bench today against the Rays, and I know a few days ago he was also in there. So everything checked out fine with him. And then in more exciting action, Mick Abel looked really, really, really good against the Braves a few days ago over the weekend. He had 6 strikeouts in 3 innings, 10 swings and misses. It is worth noting, obviously it's spring training, you can't take away too much. And the Braves were playing a split squad, and it was in Fort Myers. So they only had one 40-man roster hitter in the lineup, and that was Jorge Mateo, who isn't exactly known for being a good hitter, even though he is a big league player. So he was facing, a AAA or maybe even a good AA lineup. But obviously those results are really encouraging.
And what encouraged me most there was, he was sitting mid-high 90s and he was commanding the zone. He was putting the pitches where he wanted to put them. And I think that's the main question we have with Mick Abel is, will he be able to do that? So just to see that, albeit against a split squad Braves lineup, that was very good to see.
I think back last Thursday, we had a little debate about Zebby versus Abel for that last rotation spot. And Zebby's had kind of some up and down results, whereas Abel has just, like Central said, it's been subpar competition, but he has looked the part of the guy you trade a great closer for at the deadline.
Yeah, and I think Falvey's Mattress's point was really good. With Abel, the question isn't ever, is his stuff going to play? He's dominated AAA, and we even saw last year he has the stuff to dominate good big league lineups when he faced the Phillies, who obviously traded him a few months prior. He absolutely shoved in that game, but so far in spring training, he's been, pounding the zone, which is what you want to see out of him. His success as a big league starter is going to come down to whether he's in and around the zone. And so far, it's only been 6 innings, but he's been around the zone.
Yeah, and like Central said, he's been around the zone, and that's been the other question about him is you mentioned as a starter, and I think some people have talked about putting him in the bullpen, and I think most people would agree he looks like a big time starter right now. But as far as that bullpen, we have some thoughts on that right after this break.
And welcome back into Twins Takes with Twins Insider and Falvey's Mattress. I'm Twins Central. As mentioned before the break, we're going to now break down the bullpen, which we don't expect to be very good, but might be interesting, at least with some old friends in there like Taylor Rogers and Liam Hendricks. But before that, the Twins did claim Zach Kent, a right-handed relief pitcher. He spent last season with Cleveland, but the Twins claimed him from St. Louis, who were just playing the off-season churn of the wheel with trying to get guys in and off the 40-man roster. Last season, he threw 17 2/3 innings, 4.58 ERA, and most notable, he does have an option year remaining, so the Twins can, as long as they want to commit the 40-man spot to him, can send him down to St. Paul to start the season. I think there's actually a decent chance, just with the lack of right-handed relieving arms that the Twins currently have available to them. I think that if he is serviceable in spring training, he's going to start the year in St. Paul, and we'll see him at some point in early April. Insider, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, it's a small sample from last year, but he did a pretty good job limiting hard contact. He got a decent amount of whiffs. His slider actually got a lot of whiffs, got weak contact against it. And with relievers, you can oftentimes just live off of maybe one or two pitch. And of course, you mentioned that he was in Cleveland, and every time you ever doubt any one of their relievers, they just show up and post like a 3 ERA. So maybe they're trying to get some of that magic rubbed off. But that bullpen is definitely, it's a guy like Zach Kent can definitely try to push for a spot.
Yeah, and I think your point about just having one pitch, you said he had that slider, which obviously that's going to be more effective against a right-handed hitter. If you can put him in the right matchups, I think he can probably be a guy that you're fine throwing if you have a short start, give him the 4th and 5th inning or the 5th or 6th inning and be fine with it. You're not going to be excited about it, but he'll get the job done. And we wanted to take a look at the guys that we thought were locks for this bullpen. So Taylor Rogers, who the Twins signed this offseason, he's making, I believe, $2 million. He'll be in the opening day bullpen. And then a pair of guys that we saw getting late innings last year in the second half, Cole Sands and Justin Topa. I'm not exactly excited about either one of them, but they'll both be on the roster. Do you guys have thoughts on either of those 3 guys?
When are we getting the Cole Sands breakout? I thought in 2024 he was going to take that step. Last year I thought he was really going to take that step. Maybe this will be the year for him. I mean, he's got good stuff when he's sitting high 90s with his fastball. He can be effective, so maybe he can be our next reclamation project in the bullpen.
I don't know why Central said he wasn't excited about Justin Topa. I mean, it's a great pitcher, man. I will ride or die for Justin Topa. Ground ball machine, no walks. Central? Response?
I'm afraid if you're riding or dying with Justin Topa, you're going to be 6 feet under very soon.
I'd say maybe 7 feet under, but
yeah, I mean, you mentioned that he gets ground balls. That is his one redeeming quality, at least in my eyes. He doesn't exactly have eye-popping stuff, but the ground ball rate is useful. Last year he was the last guy in the totem pole. This year, I think he's going to be anywhere from the probably 3rd highest leverage reliever to, it wouldn't surprise me if he was getting save opportunities. That just goes to show how far the bullpen as a whole has dropped off. But I'm not excited about any of those 3 guys. Falvey's Mattress kind of mentioned that Sands breakout. I think in an ideal world, if everything goes right, Sands is who you want to get the most saves on this team, because it means that you have a guy that you trust for not only 2026, but 2027 and 2028 as well.
I think just looking at some of the stuff, I also think Eric Orsi, I think you say Orsi, who they acquired from the Rays this offseason, I think he might kind of make a push for that back end because he's got good fastball, he's got good slider, he's got a good splitter. He's looked impressive in a handful of appearances in spring.
Yeah, he did give up a home run in his last appearance, but as we said, you can't take away too much from spring training as a whole, let alone one outing. But you look at Orsi's Stuff Plus, which is basically you can read it like OPS Plus or WRC Plus, where 100 is league average. But it's simply looking at the pitcher's pitch shape, extension, release. It's basically telling you how good or bad the pitch shape should play. All of his pitches rate out at 105, 106, 107, that area. So he has 3 offerings that are above average pitches. I would say if I had to predict today, he would be who I would go to in the 9th inning if, the other team had a mix of righty and lefties coming up. If they had, 2 lefties and a righty, I think you would go with Taylor Rogers, obviously. But Orsi's who I would go to if it's, you're playing the Royals and it's Bobby Witt, Michael Garcia, and Vinny Pasquantino or something like that.
Do you have the Stuff Plus numbers for Andrew Chafin? I think he's a big believer in analytical pitching.
I don't think Andrew Chafin even knows his own Stuff Plus. I tried to pull it up and my computer burned. Falvey's Mattress. The other guy that we have on here in the lock section is Anthony Banda, who the Twins claimed. Did they claim him off waivers or did they trade for him?
They traded an international bonus pool, right?
That's right. So he was placed on waivers by the Dodgers, and the Twins jumped the waiver order by trading international bonus money.
Tom Pohlad spares no expense. He's putting together a team.
And he's making like $1.2 million or something like that. So they're really investing in the bullpen here. But Falvey's Mattress, any thoughts on Banda? He was good with the Dodgers last year. He's from the left side. Any opinion on him?
He's got a couple, at least one good year under his belt. When I look at his Baseball Savant page, I see a decent amount of reds. So with a bullpen like we have right now, why not take a shot on him and see if he can be something for us? I mean, nothing can hurt,
Yeah, I'm definitely fine taking the chance on him. Obviously, if the Dodgers thought that he was the answer there, as good as the Dodgers are, their bullpen isn't the strength of their team. So the fact that they gave up on him for international bonus pool money isn't exactly a glowing endorsement, but the Twins can get their hands on him and see what they can do. So those are the 5 guys that we have in the lock section. That's Taylor Rogers, Cole Sands, Justin Topa, Anthony Banda, and Eric Orsi. And then we have a handful of guys here competing. The first one, old friend Liam Hendricks. He debuted today. Can you tell us about that, Insider?
I think everybody at this point knows the story. Horrible Twin starter. Goes to transitions to the bullpen, bounces around for a while, becomes an all-star closer for a couple years, gets cancer, beats that, comes back from that, and because was probably a little bit weak, he blew his arm out, has been up and down for a couple years with the injuries. And like you said, he came back today and he actually looked pretty decent for like a 36-year-old coming off injury in his first spring game. He was hitting 90. He maxed at 95.1 on his four seam. He was sitting 93 on average. That Dan Hayes put those numbers out on Twitter. He mixed in curveball, slider, got a strikeout, no walks, just 1 weak hit. Definitely, if he's able to get that velo up, maybe 96, 7, something like that, we could. He's probably going to make the team. I think there's an ideal world, they probably think he's a closer, which is kind of terrifying. But if he's physically okay, he should make the team.
I think you're right about that. The only reason that we didn't put him in the lock section is because he's on that minor league deal with I believe it's $2 million if he makes the team. Like Insider said, I'll echo his thoughts. If he's healthy and shows promise, I think they're going to give him an opportunity. And last year he was ineffective, but it wasn't a velo issue. So the fact that the stuff is still there is obviously encouraging. And we should mention that he is on the Australian WBC expanded pitching pool, much like Joe Ryan, who we talked about earlier. So the Twins could lose him if Australia advances. That's obviously much more of a long shot than the U.S. making it to the knockout rounds. The next guy we have up, Insider mentioned him earlier, Andrew Chafin, Falvey's Mattress. Any thoughts on the bearded wonder?
You know, what I like about Mr. Chafin is he does bring a lot of big league experience to the bullpen that will definitely be lacking that. It's tough to see right now in springtime, as we've talked about. He doesn't care to throw too hard. He's still in his ramp up section. So I don't know if he makes the cut or not. He does bring that experience, but another issue we've got going is we've already got 2 lefties in our lock section. So how many left-handed relief pitchers do we want to carry on this team?
Yeah, I think you raise a good point here. And when we get to our next guy, it's yet another lefty. I think if you're just ranking the 8 most talented relievers in the Twins organization, I think 4 of them are going to be left-handed. I just don't know. You can make an argument for both sides. You just take the 8 most talented, or do you want to take guys that you can play the matchups with a little bit more insider? If you were Jeremy Zoll, how would you handle that?
I do believe in the process of playing the matchups. The issue becomes when you're playing the matchups with Twin Central 1 pitching, right? Playing the matchups when you have Louis Varland pitching is one thing, but with the lack of talent that a lot of these guys have, the lack of raw stuff, some of these guys are pretty old, probably way past their prime. I think they should probably just put the best 8 in, but I think Funderburk will probably start in St. Paul, but he will probably not be there for long.
Yeah, so you brought him up. Cody Funderburk is next on our list. If you would have had us make this list a month ago, not only would have Funderburk been in the lock, I think he probably would have been in one of the top 2 or 3 options to get late innings. He was really good in the second half of the season. I think if he wasn't good in the second half of the season, he probably wouldn't be in the organization anymore. And now I think that he's probably ticketed to St. Paul. Fulvi's mattress, do you think that we see him on the opening day roster or not?
I do not think we see him there. He was pretty dang good in the second half last season, so it's fun to see that progression from him. But as we've mentioned, there's just so many numbers we have to sort through right now that I think Funderburk will probably start in St. Paul and hopefully work his way into the bullpen sometime mid-May. It's my guess.
Yeah, regardless whether he makes the opening day roster or not, he'll definitely pitch plenty of innings at Target Field. The next guy on our list here is a non-roster invitee. Spent last season with the White Sox, Dan Altavilla. There was an article, I can't remember if one of you guys saw this article, maybe. They wrote about LaTroy Hawkins really believing in Dan Altavilla. He has a pretty good fastball. He has a history of bouncing around in the majors, and he's looked pretty good in spring training, as we'll talk about in a little bit. But I think Altavilla is a sneaky option here. He's a right-handed reliever. He has experience, pitching in late in games, which, as we've talked about, isn't something that features in this bullpen. Are either of you on the Altavilla train?
I am actually. He's going to pitch for Team Italy, I believe, and that'll be interesting to watch him if he pitches. I just want to see. I'd love to see him face like real players instead of the guys you get in the 8th inning of a spring training game. But yeah, you mentioned that article. I believe it was by Theo Tollefson, and they talked about LaTroy said that he viewed his fastball a lot like Joe Ryan's fastball, where it's a combination of extension and arm slot, and it just gets a lot of weak contact and gets whiffs. And again, this is the story with this bullpen over and over, opportunity. So this guy's not young. He's had sparing big league success, but he's going to have an opportunity. And I think there's if I were betting, I think it would be like plus 200. It wouldn't be a totally outlandish bet that he makes this team.
Yeah, and I think even if he doesn't make the team, I think you'd get minus odds if we're in Vegas on him appearing at some point. That's just how relievers go. If you're in the organization and in St. Paul, you're going to, especially with this bullpen or lack of it, you're going to get innings at some point, and he'll be one of those guys. Next on the list, if we would have recorded this a few days ago, I think we would have all been really, really excited about him, and we still are excited about him. That's Marco Raya. Last time out, he really struggled locating his pitches. I think he had either 4 or 5 walks in a third of an inning, which if you look at his St. Paul numbers, he walked over 5 guys per 9 at St. Paul. He's a failed starter prospect. They came to him this offseason and said, hey, be ready to pitch out of the bullpen. Do either of you, not long-term, because I think long-term we're all fans of him, but for just 2026, or any of you, I know Insider with his bold take last time predicted him as the closer. Does last week's appearance shake your confidence at all?
These things happen. I mean, it looked like he looked like any number of Twins pitchers against the Yankees, just completely soiling himself and not being able to throw a strike. But he's one of those prototypical guys where he's got a big stuff arm and he sometimes just loses it. The closer may have been a little extreme, but I do believe he will he'll be on the team at some point, and I think he will overall be good. He'll be a lot like Sir Anthony Dominguez is the comp I had in my mind, where it's pretty good, big time stuff, mostly solid strikeouts, but you'll have a ton of walks. So not a closer maybe, but like a seventh inning big time stuff guy.
Yeah, I think if all goes right in 2026, if it's June or July, you're envisioning him as one of those guys you're handing the ball in the 7th or 8th inning and asking him to get you out of a jam or start a clean inning and get through it without bleeding any runs. The next few guys on the list, Julian Merriweather, we mentioned on episode 1, exited spring training with an injury, so he's not really an option anymore. And then Matt Bowman, who's going to pitch in the WBC as well, I believe for Israel. Is that correct?
I thought it was Canada, right?
Is it Canada? I was thinking Israel for some reason.
I think it's Canada. I think he is
Okay,
Jewish,
Canada.
so I thought he was going to pitch for Israel. I think he was approached by Israel, but he chose Canada.
Well, look at that. 2 countries eyeing for the talent of Matt Bowman. He's obviously another old friend. Are either of you excited to see him potentially in a Twins uniform once again?
I'm not, but I bet Mattress is.
To be honest with you guys, I'm not too excited about him. As we've been talking about, there's so much opportunity here that maybe we'll strike gold with one of these guys or 2 of these guys, and they'll become something that we need them to be. But Matt Bowman specifically, I am not too excited about.
Yeah, I can't say you're going to get me in the Matt Bowman fan club either. I mean, he's a fine front-end reliever, but you're not going to put him late in games or anything like that.
We mentioned some of these guys, but I'll do a quick little roundup of recent reliever stat lines and some velos, because that's with some of these older guys, a lot of you're just stuff watching and velo watching. So we mentioned Hendricks, but Andrew Chafin, who famously said, basically, you're an idiot if you care about my fastball velocity. He said that a couple weeks ago. I don't remember who he said it to, but he in his last outing he'd reached up to 86.5. So he's getting there. He had a clean 1-2-3 inning with a strikeout, no walks. Taylor Rogers on Saturday versus Boston, 1-2-3 inning, 1 strikeout. Got a couple lefties out if I remember, and he was up to 89.0. So again, these older guys, they're not where you want them to be, but they are presumably building up. And Cole Sands pitched today, used a lot of his pitches, cutter, splitter, curveball. Fastball was good at 95. So some of these guys, you can start to see it's taking shape, even if it may not be quite like last year's bullpen. Let's just say that. No one's going to come out and throw 102-mile-an-hour splitter, I don't think.
That'd be something if they did. Just to echo insiders' thoughts, these veterans especially, I'm not real fixated on their velocity, just because Chafin especially, his debut, he was throwing 83-mile-an-hour 4-seamers, and StatCast was actually classifying them as change-ups initially, and then they were corrected two fastballs. Jesus Christ, dude.
She's fired up about Andrew Chafin. I can't blame her.
So Chafin a few weeks ago his first outing of spring was throwing 83-mile-an-hour fastballs that StatCast was classifying as changeups. As Insider mentioned, that was up to 86.5 in his most recent outing Sunday. And if you look at last year's velocity readings, he only sat 90 in 2025. So he's approaching that number. If you get to the end of spring training and he's 89, 90, 91, I think you're in a good spot. And I think you'll see him in the bullpen.
So with all this conversation about the bullpen, we've talked about how a lot of it is usage dependent. And of course, the man who sets up all those matchups and determines who's going to pitch before and after whom, that is the skipper, the manager, Derek Shelton. I'm a little bit ambivalent on Derek Shelton. I don't really know what to expect, but what do you guys think about the Twins' new skipper?
It's personally hard for me to get excited about him. When you bring in a new manager, you just want to have that hope, like, oh, maybe this is the answer that the organization has been searching for. But when you saw him in a similar situation in Pittsburgh, they ran similar payrolls. had a similar, they were probably a worse roster, at least on paper, while he was there. But he didn't ever get anything out of them, which I think when you hire a new manager, that's all you're looking for is hope. And Shelton doesn't exactly inspire that in me. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he's a one and done, especially with Falvey leaving. I think I'm comfortable saying this felt like a Falvey hire. I don't know where you guys stand on that.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. I know that a lot of people are kind of worried about Shelton being, he was a Twins bench coach prior, but let's remember that he was one of Paul Molitor's guys. So you Rocco haters out there, he was not a Rocco hire. The thing that sticks out to me about Shelton is his ability to communicate. I mean, we've had multiple players coming out in articles written by Hayes and Gleeman that he's visited their homes or met them halfway and just had really good conversations with some of our A-name players. And I think that's kind of been a motif of this offseason between Shelton and now Tom Pohlad. They're really trying to get communication down, whether that's with players or reporters or fans. So I do commend Derek Shelton for that. His ability to manage the team with the roster that he has built, I do question, but I do like him as a communicator at this point.
I think you raise a good point about him being a Molitor guy. I kind of forgot about that, to be honest with you. So the Rocco haters, which I'm sure there are plenty of, and I don't know that I would exclude myself from that category. That is a good point that you brought up. And as we talked about with the bullpen, it's going to be hard to evaluate him because, you're giving him chicken shit and expecting him to make chicken salad out of it. So he's going to have to be a miracle worker of some sort.
Well, I think this conversation about the manager and the bullpen, I just think back to the trade deadline still, because that is probably for the next, 2 or 3 years going to be the defining thing of whoever the manager is, whoever the players are. Those players are going to be there because of that trade deadline for years. So spring training, you mentioned Central at the top that we're 2-8 now. How do you guys feel about the sort of early returns from the trade deadline?
With the caveat that it's obviously still way too early to make any defining conclusions on this. I think I'm in a similar position that both of you guys are, in that value-wise, I think that the Twins probably made out fine. Like, you don't look at the trades and say, oh, that was an awful deal or anything like that. But I don't know that they got like great excess value on any of the trades, especially for the guys that had multiple years of control, like Varland, like Duran, like Jax, who you got Taj Bradley for. So I look back, would you be better with Griffin Jax on this year's roster or Taj Bradley? Would you be better with this year's roster with John Duran or Mick Abel? I think there's reasonable arguments to be made that you're better with both of those relievers than, either Abel or Bradley. And if you're going to look at either one of those, it's definitely the Abel one that you're likely going to get excess value out of.
Yeah, I mean, the deadline happened, right? It sucked at the time. It might suck for the next couple of years, but we just got to deal with it now, right? So I think one guy I'm super excited to see what he does this year is Eduardo Taillé. He can kind of make or break that Duran trade, depending on Abel, obviously, but I'm super excited for him. He's got that great power tool. If we can keep him stuck at catcher, I think that that trade will come out to be a very good trade for us down the road. Obviously, it hurts not to have that electric entrance on a nice night at Target Field, but we made our trades. We made our bed. We got to sleep in it, and hopefully these guys can pan out for us.
Well, I think, again, I think at least value-wise, Abel, if he starts, will probably produce similar or more value than Duran. Bradley, if he starts, which he will almost certainly produce more value than Jax. The one I think that, of course, a lot of fans are going to be. I think by the end of the year, I think most fans would be okay with getting Abel. I think most fans would be okay with getting Bradley. I think the Varland trade is definitely going to sting. I know. I've seen a lot of fans who that one really hurt them. It really confused them, and I think both of the players in that package, Alan Rodin, the outfielder, and Kendry Rojas, the left-handed starter, they've both looked impressive in spring, but yet, like Central brought up, this year's team, right now, I don't think Rodin is going to make the team. I don't think Rojas will make the team. certainly to start the year. Louis Varland would be your closer, your fireman, your arguably best pitcher in the rotation or the bullpen. So that one will, unless something happens we don't expect, that one will sting for, I think, the entire year and probably longer. And did I mention he's from St. Paul?
I was waiting for one of you guys to mention. Obviously, the Minnesota connection is what brings a lot of people, brings their emotions into it more than trading, a Willie Castro or a Harrison Bader. And Varland has, 5 years of team control, and like Insider mentioned, would be a mainstay at the back of the Sens bullpen. And Rojas really struggled at St. Paul. He had one good outing in spring training so far and one not so good outing. And he was really bad at St. Paul, like I mentioned. And Roden, I think, is probably just a guy at this point. It's still a little early to label him as that, but are either of you, he has had a good spring, or either of you like pounding the table for Alan Roden?
I actually kind of am, because I think except for Buxton, he's probably the best defensive player, like maybe even on the 26 man. Honestly, like he's like a really good fielder. And the bat is maybe just a guy, maybe it's a quad A. But honestly, this team's defense could use another above average player. Because I look at like Trevor Larnach, I look at Alan Roden, I see a role for Roden's glove that does not exist on Trevor Larnach. I don't know how Mantrich feels.
All I have is that I'm much more excited about him than Trevor Larnach. And I'm ready for Trevor Larnach to be gone. Everything else has been said.
Yeah, and there is the news of Jurickson Profar being suspended, potentially suspended the whole season. I think that's your last real logical chance at moving Trevor Larnach. The Braves are obviously all in on winning in 2026. So if there's a deal to be struck there, maybe you can get a reliever from Atlanta and improve both ball clubs. But that's our thoughts on the bullpen, on Derek Shelton, and on the 2025 trade deadline. I'm sure we'll bring that up many times, not throughout just this year, but throughout the next few years. And we'll be back to close out the episode after this.
Welcome back to episode number 2 of Twin Stakes. We are going to close out this podcast on a high note. And fellas, there is a big international tournament, the World Baseball Classic, the WBC. Action starts tomorrow night. I know we all have a lot of thoughts and predictions about this, but let's just real quick, for our fans who didn't know this was going on, let's just fly through the Twins players you can see in some of these games. Obviously, we talked about Byron Buxton. He is playing center field for the United States. Dan Altavilla, who we've talked about, reliever, playing for Team Italy. Gio Urshela, who we've not talked about, old friend, has a fun walk-up song, a fan favorite walk-up song. Got a lot of at-bats early in camp. Might make the team as a depth guy, minor league depth guy. We can talk more about him later, but he is playing for Colombia. Matt Bowman, I think we said earlier in the episode, is playing for Canada. We were wrong. We fact-checked this. He is, in fact, playing for Team Israel. Luis Quinones, who is a Twins farmhand reliever, 120 appearances in the minor leagues, never pitched in the big leagues. He is relieving for Team Puerto Rico. Eduardo Salazar, who is a guy the Twins claimed earlier this offseason, he's a reliever. He's pitching for Team Venezuela. And then Joe Ryan and Liam Hendricks for U.S. and Australia. As we mentioned already, they have an exemption, and if those teams make past pool play, they can possibly be elevated to the rosters. And does anyone here have a prediction about who's going to win the whole thing?
I think that we're going to see a repeat of the 2022 WBC, and Japan is going to take down the U.S. My main concern with the U.S., the lineup, you look through it, it's really good players, but the pitching staff is just, it's like stars and scrubs. It's Skeens and Skubal headlining, but Skubal's only going to pitch one game, and it's going to be against Great Britain. And then he's going to go back to Tigers camp, which, I mean, it's good that he's representing the country and whatnot, but just one game against Great Britain, I think that you could probably throw me or you out there and we'd have a shot at beating them with our lineup. And then Joe Ryan's obviously out, and Logan Webb is there, so I guess he's an option. But I think there was a report that today that Nolan McLean is going to start the championship if the U.S. is going to get that far, and that just doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in me. I don't know about you guys.
Byron Buxton. He's on our team. He's a big game guy. He likes the moment. Give me USA over Japan. I'd like to see a walk-off home run out of Mr. Buxton on this one. I mean, it'd be fun to see a repeat matchup. You know, that Trout-Shohei final out was so cool for all baseball fans worldwide. So it would be really cool to see that matchup again. But it'd be really cool if our guy Buck could take home some hardware on this one. Insider, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, it'd be fun. And Buxton, that would be 2 championships that Buxton will win this year. So that would be quite the year. That would be the U.S. obviously just cleaned up at the Olympics. It would be another achievement of American sporting. But I don't share that same optimism. I agree with what Central said about the pitching staff. I don't even think the U.S. is going to make the finals because I just don't trust that pitching staff. So I actually think you are going to see the Dominican Republic defeat Japan. And before we wrap, my guy Troy wanted me to, he obviously can't talk in this episode, but he did want me to get his prediction in there. He, just like me, sees Dominican Republic, but he sees them beating the United States in the final. And I think that's all the news. That's all the takes. That's all we've got for now. So, Central, if you want to close us out.
Yeah, well, first off, I hope all 4 of us are wrong, and I hope that the Stars and Stripes can bring home the WBC. Like you guys mentioned, it's an awesome event, and it's really taken off over the last few times that they've done it. It's really cool to see it grow in popularity, not just here in the States, but worldwide. The Asian countries get really into it, as do the Caribbean countries. I think it's just a great event, and obviously the U.S. is hosting the World Cup. Not too long, they just had the Olympics, so it's good to see all these athletes competing for their countries. And we know that Insider just jinxed us by saying we went over all the news. Expect a ton of breaking news to happen tomorrow now. But with that said, we'll be back next week. Thanks, everybody, for listening. You're listening to Twins Takes, the Minnesota Twins podcast.